Do do do. Why don't you always get the absolute worst songs stuck in your head? It never fails. It's never something that you want to hear all day that becomes an earworm. It's it's always something stupid like a song by Culture Club. And it looks like the new the new move here over the last week or so with YouTube has been that limited limited notifications will go out, but now there's always going to be a minimum of at least a minute before they can be sent. Why? Who the hell knows? You just have to you'd have to ask Susan on that. I have no idea. Oh, we're over a minute now. And okay, now we're starting to. Okay, hold on. My chat is not working. Come on. There it goes. Okay, now my chat's working. That was me. The chat stopped working. Hey, Crestbaum and Sergio and Nolan and Haroon and Fluffy and Connor and Drunken Cannon and I gotta tell you, I almost all our streams. The default setting I have on our streams is, as far as category, is comedy. I switch it to gaming on the days we play a game. I was gonna switch it today because I was thinking, well, this probably isn't a comedic tone or a comedic topic, but when we're talking about U.S. and world politics and the state of affairs right now, it is comedic. It's gotten to the point where you might as well laugh because it beats crying. Barry says we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and it's all J.G. Wentworth's fault. Goddamn J.G. Wentworth. Guys, hey Maximus, just watched the Catherine stream. So, oh, thanks. Yeah, that was by far the farthest I got. In a little while, I'll post it over at the Goosh for the Gooshers as well. Yeah, I was pleased, Maximus. I've gotten way more comfortable with the movement of those blocks, way more. But it's just become it started to get depressing to me because the current state we're in, I mean, politically here in America, is abysmal and uncalled for. This is the first time in my life I can honestly see where, and again, I followed politics forever, since 1972. I can honestly see where politicians on the grand scale, on the national scale, are actually benefiting and sometimes working towards keeping us at one another's throats. It works well for them because they become entrenched into both sides. You're either going to do it my way or not at all. You're either going to do it my way or not at all. Both sides have that same mindset now. And the only way you can perpetuate that or feed that is to make sure that the people that you have in your camp stay hardcore entrenched in your side. Way to do that, paint the other side as villains. And by doing that, I'm not even talking about necessarily where you come out and say, okay, you're bad. It's in your policy, the way you write your policy. And I'll give you some examples of that. Willie says, my fear is that we may become the next Rome. The most powerful military and republic the world has collapsed due to idiots. Yeah, Willie, I would love, you know what? I'd love to say right now when you brought that up, I'd say, oh no, that won't happen. I'm not going to be that stupid. There's a lot of similarities there. And the thing of it is, a good example, this came to me the other day. And now, again, I like having people here from every political perspective. All I ask is that people respect one another as individuals. You can have any opinion you want. I'm going to hit both sides. I have recently been more right-leaning because, again, I don't like extremists, and the left I felt was being more encroached by their extreme sector. But now that's not even true. I think the right is being encroached by their extreme sector just as much. But I'm going to start out with one that comes from the left. You'll hear them talking about systemic racism and what to do about it. Things like reparations. I'm not saying that systemic racism doesn't exist, because it does. What I'm saying is, look how they paint that. Every time they try and craft a solution, they say, well, what we need to do is help people of color by this, that, and the other, whether it's reparations or whatever the case may be. What does that do? That sets people, it is racist by definition, because you're setting one specific group of people to receive a benefit that others don't. And the unfortunate thing is you're setting this up based on the actions of ancestors from a couple hundred years ago. Nobody alive today had anything to do with it. And here's why I say they're painting it that way on purpose. Because the easiest thing to do would be to leave race out of it. I'm a big believer. I mean, the inner cities need help. There's a lot of areas in this country that are in desperate need of assistance, of a means to becoming of a true, how do I want to put it, a true look into a future that is positive, that American dream type thing. And yes, there are a lot of communities in this country where you're starting at a significant disadvantage. However, there's no reason to bring up anybody's race in it. If you want to make policy, you make policy designated to assist people that meet certain socioeconomic parameters. And you will encompass all the people you're looking to help with these other programs, such as, whatever it may be, without setting them apart by color. But it's not in the politician's best interest to not specify a specific group for gaining assistance, because they want the votes and they want you entrenched in their camp. That's what they're after. So if they come out and say something that would be entirely effective, which is, okay, all communities, whether you want to break it down by county, however you want to break it down, who fit into this category of socioeconomic distress, here's the steps we're going to take to try and help you out. You would get very little resistance to it, because you're just helping people who need help. But if you take it that next step and break it down by race, then or it doesn't have to be by race, but break it down by a specific group. As a politician, now what you're doing is you're gaining favor with that specific group. And that's why it's to their benefit to keep us at one another's throats. Philip says, if you view America as an empire, at least in terms of world influence, most last only 250 years. Based on that, you've got 15 more. Depressing but true, Philip. Wolverine says, unless the entire planet gets literally nuked, I don't see the world ending for billions of years. Oh, I would disagree. No species can last forever, and humanity's days are numbered. Oh, you don't see... I'm sorry. I read wrong, Wolverine. You don't see the world ending for billions of years. Right. The world may go on. I don't think... And regardless of what we do ourselves, I don't think humans will remain on the planet for an overabundance of time. There's too many... excuse me. There's too many potential destroyers out there for us to think that we're going to let... I would like to think that everybody here with us today, everybody in this stream, everybody alive on this planet, their children, grandchildren, and their grandchildren will all get to lead full lives on this planet. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm saying I like to think so. But I don't think we have an extended existence here. Deuce says, I personally believe if nothing changes, then this nation will not exist within my lifetime. That's what I'm afraid of. Personally, we're spending too much time trying to control factors outside our borders. I agree with that. Excuse me, guys. 100%. We get far too involved in things that should not involve us. Now, that's not to say we can't have a presence worldwide, or that even a military presence isn't necessary at some points. However, from my perspective, America should only be involved anywhere else militarily if there is a direct potential threat to us and our way of life. Outside of that, getting involved in other people's affairs is just militarily involved in other people's affairs is just something that shouldn't happen, and we're not good at that. Excuse me, and whether you're right or left, neither side has proven to be good at it. But my stance is, if we continue on like this, if we continue on with the hatred and the vitriol and this hardcore one side against the other, it's going to end bad. something bad is going to happen. You can feel it brewing. Hell, I'm not the only one. You guys got to be seeing it as well. And if something bad happens in this country just because of our worldwide standing, it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the world. There's no two ways about that. And look at what we have coming up already for early potential candidates in 2024. There's no relief in sight. There is no one. There's no one who is willing to say, okay, listen, we're going to make this work. As I've said, the most obvious thing is we spend too much time trying to give more power to the federal government. We should be trying to take away power from them and redistribute it back to the states and localities. That's how you stop this vitriol. That's how you take down the temperature. Because we know the Electoral College exists because of the fact that people tend to live or congregate their lives with people that are like-minded. By giving more and more power to states and localities, you're allowing them as much as possible to live their lives the way they want. That cuts down on the vitriol. But it's become no. I mean, whatever I want has to be the rule of the land for all. And that works in favor of the politicians. The biggest hurdle you have towards taking that what to me is a very obvious step of giving more power back to states and localities is that would mean the scumbags that are in office now would have to give up some of their power, and they're not gonna. Oh, and just let me put this out there. If any of you want to excerpt this and keep this on your hard drive, because we're going to be having more and more of these conversations, political conversations, because I'm pissed, and the piss ain't going away anytime soon. I'm not suicidal. If they say I committed suicide, I didn't. So you guys back me up on that. Philip says, here in Canada, the Trudeau government is looking into a bill that wants to rewrite the definition of hate speech to be anything that detests or vilifies. Way too vague, but they'll still give a year in jail. That would, I had told you before, Philip, if that was here in America, that would have me in the streets. Listen, anytime, and that's what governments want. They want vagueness in their laws, in their regulations, in their rules. Because as Philip says, anything that detests or vilifies, who's going to be the judge of that? That's why freedom of speech is so important. Because anytime you put any type of parameter on it, you have to have an arbiter of what crosses the line. And as soon as you do that, you've given somebody way too much power. I would be absolutely out of my mind livid if that were going on here. Giggity says, I would say the U.S. is doomed for another financial collapse sometime soon. I'm scared of that too, given the concerning rate of inflation paired with a lack of liquidity. Yeah, you're 100% right, Giggity Goo. I'm really, really frightened for that. And the thing of it is, does it seem like, I mean, we're all just regular folks hanging around having a chat on the internet. Why can we see this? And it's like our politicians can't. And Democrats have been known as the spend group. But I got news for you. That past Republican administration spent money way, way too willy-nilly as well. I mean, Biden is doing it too. But it's just like the concept of money doesn't mean anything to them. And at some point, this what is basically just printing more money catches up with you. And exactly as was stated, it's going to catch up with you in a big, big way. And right now, the inflation, which, hell, we all know, we talked about it last year during the pandemic about how this was going to happen. And it is. And it's way worse than I even thought it would be at this point. Let's see. Oink says, I got my first vaccination shot yesterday, so now I have a headache. Seriously, my head hurts a lot. My asshole also hurts a lot, but that isn't because of the vaccine. So, yeah, yesterday was fun. Yikes. It sounds like you had a busy day, pal. Wolverine says, check last two posts, please. Okay, hold on. Given the damage we have done to the earth, deforestation, making animals go extinct, pollution, etc., we deserve to go extinct. If species die out naturally like the dinosaurs, I don't mind that. But we are basically destroying the ecosystem because of our greed. If companies added money to the budget to at least plant saplings and replace the trees we cut down, that's at least a start. I think there's been, at least from that perspective, not necessarily in taking care of the planet overall, are we doing well? I think we're doing much better with reforestation throughout the world. You can see a lot of concerted effort to reforest, and that's encouraging. That's encouraging. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. Philip says, if that's the case, either I'll be in jail or it'll be unenforceable. Personally, the minute I get out after that stretch, I'll go protest Parliament, crude sign in hand, get another year. I'm stubborn. I'm with you, Phil. I can't even fathom that. To say that we're going to let government have some sort of carte blanche, basically, on defining what is hate speech. That is the wet dream of every dictator type who's ever lived. How do you stay in power? Put down dissidents. Be in charge of determining what exactly is hate speech or restricted speech and put them in jail. That's frightening to even have proposed in a free nation like Canada. To even be thinking that is just stunning to me. Jack says, it's bad, but not that bad, just to be honest. It's actually one of the better times to be alive in history. Presidents killed, assassination, civil rights movement, Vietnam War, and that was just the 60s. But that's not what we're talking about, Jack. What we're talking about is, where is the country as a whole going? Is there going to be a significant event in the near future that changes this, exactly what you're saying, one of the better times to be alive? And at the rate we're going, as long as we maintain this level of us versus them mentality in America, which I've never seen it anywhere as close to the way it is now, there's going to be something big. Something big and something really bad is going to happen. And if we know, because again, how America's positioned itself on the world stage, if anything significant happens here, it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the world. Well, and you guys, I know you folks in the UK have told me the same things, and just what Philip's saying up in Canada, it's not just here. I mean, there is this type of political do-or-die strife going on throughout the world. Luckman says, what's your favorite friendship in Naruto? I'm not going right at the moment, I'm not going to go into favorite friendships in Naruto. Josh says, honestly, if you pass vague laws, it makes people paranoid and keep them quiet. Oh, that's by design, Josh. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It uses fear to control some people from speaking out, and then the ones who do have the nerve to still say what they feel makes them easy targets to get rid of. I mean, if they're saying something that the government, that whoever's in power at the moment doesn't particularly like, makes it nice and easy to just tuck them away. See, at least here in America, our Congress doesn't need a president. They need a parent. They act like a bunch of fucking 5-year-olds. They need somebody who will come in and say, okay, listen, we're going to do things that are for the betterment of the nation. I don't give a shit if you're a Democrat. I don't give a shit if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a Libertarian, whoever you are. We're going to do the common sense things we need to all try and get ahead. Now, here's the list. Like I said, it starts with, we're going to give as much decision-making power and ability back to the states and localities as we can. We're going to have a significant health care plan. I've already got one in mind. There are ways to solve our health care woes without adding a tax burden that will be debilitating to the populace. Capitalism can work really well. It's just that capitalism has been entirely corrupted here. When you bring it in line, it can work exquisitely. When you allow capitalism to run its course with the government being the overseer, making sure that no one is taken advantage of. Which, as soon as you say that, you get all the pharmaceutical companies going, what? Wait, can't take advantage of people? Who said? Willie says, you misunderstand, Curtis. We are peasants and should do everything Uncle Sam tells us. It feels that way, doesn't it, Willie? And again, it's frightening that you've got this type of vitriol and this type of us versus them mentality, and it's hardcore. I mean, people are ready to, you guys are on social media just like I am, ready to take up arms over this. And then you have Biden saying things like, come on, saying things like, oh, well, if you're going to take up arms, you better have some F-15s and some nukes. What a stupid fucking thing to say. I don't care how he meant it, and all his apologists will make excuses for them. That was a moronic thing to say. To even invoke the concept of nuclear weapons when it comes to your own citizenry, you have to be a complete and utter moron to say something like that. Zach says, kind of sad, too, how in our country the police are even afraid to do their own job because now they get in the news for it. It saddens me. Yeah, as far as, right, I agree with you. As far as it goes with the police and the defund the police movement and all that stuff, no, bullshit. You don't need to defund the police. What you need is a system that works the way it's supposed to work. And police officers who do the wrong thing need to be taken out of their job. If they do the wrong thing at the peril of someone else, at the harm of someone else, they need to be put in jail. Period. We need to weed out to where there are only police officers in there who will want to go out and protect the public. But it does us no good when we jump to extremes like we always do. Because there have been some incidents of questionable shootings with police. Now they want to make an issue out of all of them. Look how hard initially they tried when that cop shot the young girl who was about to stab another girl. And the immediate reaction all over social media was to vilify that cop. You had that moron, LeBron James, basically calling for people to come after him in a tweet. He saved another girl's life. He did what he had to do. She had a knife out, about to stab another human being. What the hell else? What do you want police for then? Police are there to protect the victim. She was about to become a victim. He had announced himself. This girl knew the cops were there. She went in and got a knife to stab this other girl. And now you have people screaming that the cops are gone wild again. What do you want them to do? You have to take each and every case on an individual basis and stop trying to paint with broad strokes. And that goes for pretty much everything, not just policing. Philip says the reason it'd be unenforceable is that Canada has a population of 33 million. Not a lot for the amount of land, absolutely. Compared to Russia, where you can disappear 20 million and still have plenty. Yeah, you're right, Philip. It is entirely unenforceable, and it should be. It shouldn't even, to me, it shouldn't even be a thought. And for those who just came in, Philip's talking about Canada proposing a potential ban on hate speech with some very vague terminology that will allow whoever's in power basically to determine what you can and can't say at the threat of being put in jail. Luckman says, what was your honest opinion on Trump's run? Was it better than Obama or worse? On his, do you mean his presidency? They both had, I guess that's the peril of being in the middle as I am. They both had some positives. They both had some negatives. If you're looking at it strictly from the stance of their platitudes, Trump comes a little closer to my beliefs. If you're looking at it from a perspective of who did I feel more comfortable with as a human being in the office, it's Obama by several miles. So it all depends on how you break it down, I guess. Yeah, basically, as same says, so complete censorship. Sure, just give carte blanche, basically, to whoever is in power at the time to jail dissidents. That's basically what you're doing and what Philip's describing there. Am I religious? No, I'm not. Special Olympics. Most everybody in my life is. All the people that are closest to me, the people that I love the most are, which is surprising, I guess, to a lot of people. But no, I'm not. I'm not religious. And again, I've got nothing against religion. That's not how I think all this came to be. I don't believe in a great deity that provided all of this for us. I think it was a very, very, very lucky stroke of a series of events that created what we know as life. Let's see. Pax says, U.S. capitalism is basically, your company is going out of business? Well, you should have been a better businessman. But let me bail out Jeff Bezos' space company so he can fly himself to the moon. I can't disagree with you there. And now that's where, like I say, I'm more than willing to call out both sides. And that's where it's the right that tends to do that. See, and everything, again, is to extremes, because I think that the concept of trickle-down economics is not a terrible one. But as I've always said, if it's well, I like to talk about sweets. You guys know that. If you got a nice Danish there, and on that Danish, you're going to put a nice warm drizzle, it's going to flow down like the trickle-down economics would. It's going to melt in, coat the sides. You're going to have a delicious Danish. Now, if you keep fucking putting the drizzle on more and more and more, you're going to have that first little bit trickle down, and then the rest of it is going to be one great big giant sweet glob sitting on the top. And that's what we've done. That's what Republicans have done. They didn't give corporations just enough break to allow it to trickle down. They let it trickle down, and then they said, well, here, let's scoop some more advantage to you so you can keep more of your money. That's why I think people are wrong when they want to go after the billionaires from a personal standpoint. It's the corporations that need to be brought in line way more than any individuals. J-Bone says, I got called the hard R at work recently. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's crap. It's funny you say that. We were just talking yesterday. It just relates a little. I was telling my grandson, him and I went down. We had to get him some football stuff yesterday afternoon. And he's a big sports nut. And I was telling him some of the old players. And I was talking about Bob Gibson, who, if you don't know, was a pitcher for the Cardinals. Amazing guy. Big dude and threw hard. And Bob Gibson had no fucks to give. And he would tell you right off, you crowd the plate, I'm gonna plunk you in the ear. I'll hit you in the head with the ball. Don't crowd the plate on me. And I was saying how he was a big guy, he was a scary guy, and he was pissed off. But then you think about Bob Gibson came into the league in the early 60s. And I can remember reading stories about him. And he came up in a time where he wasn't allowed to eat in a lot of the restaurants that the guys, when the bus would stop in the miners, the bus would stop for food, and he wasn't allowed to eat there. And he wasn't, he saw a lot of cities where they didn't want him to play at all, and was called the hard R on a regular basis. So I look at it as like, yeah, if I'd have been through all that and got to major leagues, I'd be pretty pissed off too. I'd be more than willing to throw it in somebody's ear if they were crowding the plate as well. I can't even imagine. Willie says, next post. Okay, I'll try to remember to watch for it, Willie. Pac says, honestly, the U.S. government needs to stop giving bailouts to any company run by the ultra-rich. Bail out more small businesses. Bezos can start a new pet project using his own money. No, I agree with you, Pax. I mean, I could almost see it when we went. I could see government intervention when we had gone through the pandemic. But it leaves a bad taste in your mouth because they'd been bailing them out long before the pandemic. So then when there is a legitimate, like, say with airlines. I mean, the airlines were devastated by the pandemic. Nobody could fly. And nobody was willing to fly. And we do need to have the airlines able to come back. So if the government wanted to give them some form of bailout, well, hopefully some of it to be paid back, you could see that. But it leaves a bad taste for all of us because of the government's history of bailing out these big businesses when it's just their own failings. As Pax pointed out, and Pax and I don't always agree on everything, but we're 100% on this. If I go start my little local business, if I go start that cinnamon roll shop that I was just talking about, and not enough people buy my cinnamon rolls, the government don't give a fucking rat's ass. They're not going to pay me. I got to make my business work. So yes, I do agree. Hold on, I'm looking for Willie's post. I live in Aurora, Colorado, and the mayor made uniformed officers go and stand in a public event and pray for BLM. A group that wants to take their jobs and even lives? Well, first of all, I thought, now I could be wrong, isn't it illegal to ever force anybody into prayer? I mean, what happened to separation of church and state there a little bit? I didn't hear about that, Willie. But no, nobody should be forced to do anything along those lines. You shouldn't have, just because you work for a municipality, you should never have to show your allegiance to anyone other than your own job. Wow, if that's the case, that's pretty fucked up. Chrome says Biden wants to be a strong man, wartime president. You can see it via him pushing back the withdrawal dates from the Middle East, trying to have it on 9/11 to piss off our enemies in the Middle East. Biden's really concerning to me, Chrome, and for reasons that I didn't think he would be. I wouldn't vote for Biden because I was afraid that he has gotten, I think he's gotten mentally weak. And again, I don't like extremists, and I was afraid of him giving in too often and too much to the extremists in his party. But it's gone beyond that. I just think, and you guys know, you're in the streams with me all the time. I was a late bloomer to believing this, but I think there is cognitively something wrong with him. And that's a little frightening, because it's not just, Biden has been a gaffe machine his whole career. He's always had the speech problems, and he's always said things he shouldn't say. But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, the guy can't get through, it seems, 2 or 3 sentences in a row without just vapor locking and be right in the middle of a thought, and it goes away. And then he starts scrambling and trying to put it back together and digging himself in deeper and deeper. And that's a little scary to me. Wolverine says, please check last post. I do believe in a higher power of some form. As to what form it takes, an actual deity or some other cosmic entity, I can't say. But I'd sooner turn atheist than believe in an Indian pantheon. Yeah, for me, again, you guys know, I don't have a problem with a religion as long as they're not infringing on anyone else or forcing anything on anyone else. It's not my belief system just because I don't believe in that higher power. I just think we were just a series of odds beating cosmic events that put us here. Josh says we need to stop meddling in the Middle East, as we have seen, period. We're not capable, it seems, to solve more problems than we create. Yeah, all the evidence is on your side, Josh. I mean, I think as a nation we need to always have our eyes on the Middle East, only because we have factions in there that would do us great harm if they were given the opportunity, and we have to ensure that they don't get that opportunity. But that should be the beginning and ending of everything we do in the Middle East, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's got to have a direct effect on us, or leave it alone. I would like to be president, get a hold of the nation's budget, and I want to go through line item by line item and see every dollar that's sent overseas. Because I think, my suspicion is, there's a lot of money being sent overseas that shouldn't be. I have no problem with assistance for our own allies, the people that, have our backs, we have their backs, in times of need, or even to keep things comfortable. But I think we go way above and beyond that. I think a lot of times we send money overseas basically looking to placate people who we shouldn't be trying to placate. And I think all that money should be brought right back here. And that's when we start looking into the things, like I said at the top of the stream, where you can start looking into programs where you designate the most socioeconomically depressed regions of the country and start giving some help. For me, and again, I look at, okay, if I were president, the big thing to me is everybody who is trying to get ahead, everybody who wants to work, just wants to get a piece of that American dream, we should be all about helping them do it. Now, that's why I don't understand with things like the welfare system. You basically get penalized for going to work. I think you should have a significant amount of resources set aside for people who are working full-time jobs but are still not, are say below the poverty level, or even within a certain percentage of the poverty level. Make sure that they have access to food. Make sure that they have access to rental assistance. Let people who are trying to get ahead. And then when you have the people who just don't want to be a part of the system, and there's plenty of them, if you are perfectly able to work and just don't want to work, you should get the bare minimum. And the reason you only get the bare minimum is because you're likely to have kids, and it's not fair to the kids have nothing because you don't want to work. But if you set up a system like that, I think not only is it more fair, I think you get much more support for it as well. Arthur says next post for censors. Yeah, thanks, Susan. I just want my dirty porn and a wife that will enjoy it with me. I don't care what happens with anything else after that. A little tipsy right now. I'll tell you, pal, that's actually not a bad philosophy. Philip says the problem with the war in the Middle East is that the U.S. keeps using search and destroy tactics that lost the French Vietnam and Algeria and America Vietnam. You can't win using tactics proven to fail. I agree. And I think, Philip, I think we're right on the same page, is we need to be much more black and white with Middle East policy, in the respect that if there's a need for us to be over there politically, it needs to be stated why. And even if it's a covert action, once that action is taken, it needs to be explained to the American people and the world why that was necessary, what the direct threat was to us. Outside of that, outside of these civil wars and that go on continually throughout the world, not just the Middle East, and the pushing and shoving back and forth in the Middle East, stay out of it. It's again, how many times do you have to get stung by the same bee? It's not going to work out well for us to get involved in all that. Neb says, hi Curtis, who is your all-time favorite anime character? If you had one choice, then who would it be? Who's your most hated anime character? We're really not talking about anime, but I don't know that I have a favorite character. Shao Tucker would be probably the person I hate the most. Shao Tucker, followed closely by Arlong in One Piece. Favorite anime characters, I got a bunch. I mean, like in Hunter x Hunter, it's Killua. In One Piece, it's Luffy. One of the few times it's actually the main character. In Overlord, it's Sabus. And to pick one of them over the others, I don't know. ZOMG Ruler says, U.S. needs electoral reform in more than two parties. Well, in fairness, though, OMG, we do have more than two parties, but people won't vote for a third party. And that's the fault of us, the voters, because what happens is every time a third party gets a little bit of momentum, if the Democrats feel that this third party candidate will steal votes from them, they try and berate everybody into not voting for them because you're giving it away to the other guys. And the Republicans, if they feel like that third party candidate will steal votes for them, they berate everybody and tell them, no, you don't vote for them. You're taking votes away from us. And that's why the third parties never get ahead. Electoral reform would depend on what you're talking about. I like the Electoral College. I think it was put there for a reason. I think that reason is still entirely valid. Hold on. I apologize, guys. I just got to respond to Brax. Ugh. I'll respond to him if I can spell. I'll be right back to the chat. God damn it. Fat sausage fingers I got. He's just going to be responding to me once more but I'll keep right up with you guys. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats or anything. Governments will fall pretty soon across the world and we'll return to tribal days. I hope that's not the case, Sticky Sauce, but I mean, and again, you guys know me, I'm not an alarmist at all. Never have been. So when I'm saying this, I'm not saying this to be an alarmist. It's just is the fact. I have never seen this nation in the state that it's in right now. You can go back to the 70s while the Vietnam War was going on. You had the clashes between the conservatives and the hippies, and sure, there was a lot of anger, but there was nothing like it is now. Nothing. I don't remember anybody say, where people wouldn't go into certain businesses because of who owned them and everything. That's just amazing. Yeah, you are correct, Joseph. Voting third party is prisoner's dilemma. Yeah, and that's why I say it's, a lot of people are saying we need more than two parties, but there's not a real solution because there are more than two parties. It's up to the voters if they want to vote for them. And so to handcuff people and say, well, no, you can't vote for either one of these two parties. You got to let this third party, that's not fair. Let the third party get their votes. But yes, it's going to be very difficult. Are there just term limits and no parties? The founders knew it. I don't know that I'd be... Although there would be some advantages, I don't know how I would feel about the abolishment of parties, though. Because they do serve a purpose. And it is certainly within the rights of the political structure to be able to engage with other like-minded people politically, and that's what the parties allow for. So I don't know. That's a tough one. You could do ranked choice voting. Yeah. And again, like, that's not something I would say, oh no, that's no good. I'm just not sure how I feel about it. For those who don't know, ranked choice voting means you vote just what it sounds like, in ranks. Okay, this is my first pick, second pick, third pick, fourth pick, and then the numbers all get run and you come up with a winner. Pax says, also the tough on crime BS needs to stop. Our prisons at this point are less humane than just putting prisoners down. People wouldn't come out as even worse people if they make it out alive. Well, now, Paxo, what you've crossed over into is to identifying issues but not solutions. What do you mean tough on crime BS needs to stop? You don't put prisoners in jail anymore? I mean, you got to have a solution to that. We do that, and both sides tend to do that way too often. You identify the problem, but okay, you can say that you don't think that the prison system in America is fair, or you think it's inhumane, or whatever you think, but you still have to have another option, because people still should have the right to live their lives without being accosted and without being continual victims of crime. So, again, until you were to expand more than that, no. I mean, you have to have, you can't just say, let's get rid of the prisons. Let's not put people in jail. You have to have a solution. Joseph says, the only way we can come together and unify as a country is by fighting against a greater evil, that evil being China, ironically. Yeah, well, that's always brought the country together in the past, but even that would be a Band-Aid on the wound. I still believe the only way to really get people to where they're not at one another's throats is to significantly take power wherever you, not all of it, don't get me wrong. We still have a constitution and everything, but wherever is possible, allow people to live the way they want to live their lives on a local basis. Not only does that allow people to live how they want to live in their communities, but finally, maybe you could start getting people interested in the more local elections. Because let's face it, if there's not a presidential election on the ticket, we know that the number of people actually voting drops precipitously, insanely low. And people don't even know local politics. But if your local leaders, your community leaders had more power, had more ability to make policy about the things that you actually encounter every day, you'd get people interested in the local elections. Exactly, Arthur. People should vote based on policy, not party. I agree 100%. I agree. And I think it's been mostly recently, and it's always, you've always had people who will vote a party line, don't get me wrong. But I think more recently has that become so tribal. I mean, if you don't toe a party line now, everybody within that party wants your head. And it didn't used to be that way. Arthur says we have too many laws and too strict. Thought crime is being normalized, and that's scary. Well, thought crime, absolutely. That gets back to, where you start closing in on things like hate speech and who's going to be the arbiter of it so we can put people in prison. 100%, I agree with you. But as far as what was brought up earlier by Pax, I mean, it's one thing to say the prison system is bad, might be, but you do have to have a solution, not just an identification of the issue. Pax says our prisons are completely overwhelmed by people on BS, 10-plus year sentences where they do nothing to actually reform them. Okay, now see, again, you're still being too vague, though, pal. Because 10-plus year sentence for what? Murder? I mean, you could have somebody out there, maybe a multiple murderer, who has proven that they have no issue with taking another's life for any insignificant reason or no reason whatsoever. And because the prisons are bad, we're supposed to let them out or not reforming them. I'm not a big believer in reformation anyway. If a prisoner can be reformed, that's great. That's good. That would be good for him. It'll be good for society. but you're in prison to be punished. I don't ever recall them promising you a reform. I mean, prisons have for decades allowed you to read a lot. You hear about prisoners all the time getting their law degrees. Do a lot of prisoners come out still committing crimes? Sure. Have a lot of prisoners come out bettering themselves? Yes, that's absolutely true too. You can't look at one side, not the other. There's all kinds of stories of prisoners goes on all the time about them getting their, and nowadays it'd be even easier, getting their college degrees while in prison, things of that nature, and trying to improve their lives. But again, you're just saying BS 10 plus year sentences. What does that mean? Who sentences BS? Because people who are going to victimize others need to be kept out of society. Because you can't just look at it from the prisoner's perspective. What about their potential victims' perspectives? Chrome says the prison thing's being grossly oversimplified. There's a lot of criminals who get off with light sentences for heinous crimes. Pedos getting off with less than 10 years. I agree. It works both ways. And I do agree with Pax. There are people in prison for extended sentences for stupid shit too. I don't disagree with that. And I completely agree with you as well, Chrome. I can give you a good example. I know a person personally who, while here in New York, got 2 different DUIs. Now, supposedly we were cracking down on DUI, right? Okay. He got 2 DUIs, moved out to Vegas. While in Vegas, he got his 3rd DUI. He got that DUI because he was so drunk, he jumped a median, hit somebody else head on, and killed a man. A father of 2 kids. Killed him on his 3rd DUI. You know what he got? 5 years. That was over 10 years ago. That's what he got. That's what he served. 5 years and out. On his 3rd, he killed somebody. And then that's where I will lean towards Pax and say, yes, if there's somebody who was having a party and they had a bunch of weed for the party, they aren't even necessarily looking to distribute it, but because they had X amount, they are seen as distributors, and they're in prison for longer than that guy, then yes, there's something wrong with the system. Pax says, you missed the previous message, character limited. I believe that nobody should get more than 5 years if you can't identify a direct victim or prove that they're an active risk towards others. Ooh, now, again, you're getting scary with semantics. How do you prove an active risk? See, what is your burden of proof for what someone will do in the future? So who do you want to leave as an arbiter of that? Now, if you've got somebody who's a complete sociopath and they're willing to kill you over a parking lot at Walmart or a parking spot at Walmart, and this, you get people like this all the time that are brilliant psychos, but can present themselves well in interviews and can present themselves well in psychological evals, that person should be released back out into the public because somebody can't prove that they're an active risk towards others. When you're talking about sentencing and the safety of other people, I'm not a big fan of vague terms or vague concepts like proving what someone might do in the future. Code says, simple. If you don't want to end up in prison, don't do stupid shit. There's that too. I have no sympathy for a prisoner except for mistakenly falsely accused, but I still have trust in our judicial system. I mean, and again, that might be an oversimplification, but Code's not wrong either. The vast majority, 99.9%, I would say, of people that go to prison knew what they were doing could get them sent to prison. So there is personal responsibility that should be involved as well. Sticky Sauce says, predicting people is BS and doesn't work. Psychopaths are charming people. That's very true. Most serial killers can play nice for years in public yet are killing kids in spare time. We've seen that over and over. That's what I mean. That gets me really uneasy. When you say, well, you got to prove that they're going to do something bad. There's no conceivable way to prove that. That's impossible. They only care about the guy making untaxed money. You're right, you're not wrong, Joseph. I mean, I will say that our system does seem much more intent on getting the little guy who, and again, I, if we're going to say it about one thing, we got to say it about the other. If getting the guy who didn't pay all his taxes, you know the risk, but putting them in jail instead of just making them pay it back plus the fines and penalties, while you're letting a guy who killed someone on his third DUI out of prison in 5 years, no. The system, that part of the system, I think I can agree with Pax on. It definitely needs to be revamped. Oh, it's roasting over in the UK too, Chrome? Because it's hotter than hell here. That's why I apologize. I have to have I know it makes a buzz in the back, but I have to have the air conditioner on in here. It's terrible without it. Wang says, I think the prison population would drop if doing drugs was decriminalized. It doesn't make sense to try to discourage drug use by hurting them way more than the actual drug use would hurt them. Yeah, I've come around on that. I wasn't sure how I felt about like legalization of marijuana for a long time. I mean, I was never dead set against it, but I wasn't sure how I felt about it. But as long as we keep laws in place to penalize people who commit crimes while under the influence of things, because I think that's important. Well, it's why we've been having this battle against drunk driving for the past several decades. As long as there are penalties for that, I mean, allowing them to use things, take their drugs, to a degree. I mean, you'd have to get a list of the drugs. I don't think that there's ever a point where we need to legalize angel dust. So we'd have to get more specific. But is there room for, well, and we're seeing it with marijuana. Marijuana is legalized to a big part of the nation now. And even things like that. That goes back to what I'm saying. They worry about legalization of marijuana for so long. They were pressing the federal government to legalize. Don't worry about the fucking feds. Do it at a local level. This is how you keep the vitriol down. If your community, your state, your community, whatever, wants to legalize marijuana, the local government or the federal government should back off and say, do what you want to do. You live there. And that's how you keep vitriol down, because then the people who want it legalized are not trying to force something on the people who don't want it legalized. And there's so many things like that, where we could just make it so much easier on everybody if people, again, people are tribal. If people in their specific regions can live the way that they want to live. But, as I've said, as long as that would require taking away some of the power from the existing power structure, they're not going to go along with it. And Arthur says, murder, rape, slavery, and things that directly infringe life or freedom should be illegal. Sure. It's not the government's place to police anything else. They're overstepping their bounds. Ooh. Murder, rape, slavery, and that's it? I'm not sure what you're saying here, pal. So what? I mean, if you beat someone with a stick, but you're willing to stop before they die, then it's cool. I mean, there are always shades of gray within anything like that. Hell, let's take it a step further. If you steal someone's identity and basically destroy their lives, which has happened time and time again, you don't think there should be a significant penalty for that? I mean, I don't know about that. You'd have to. I think you'd have to include more than that. Yeah, Joseph says tax evasion equals 15 years in private slave work camp. Yeah, again, the penalties. I agree with you guys 100% on as far as the penalty phase of our justice system. Oh, it's completely fucked up, completely a mess. Philip says, I mean, look at Ted Kaczynski. Before it came out he was a Unabomber, everybody they interviewed had nothing but nice things to say about the guy. Yeah, it happens a lot. That's what I mean. That's why it's impossible to say something like, okay, you can get out of prison because we can't guarantee that you're going to hurt somebody. I mean, no, there comes a point where you have to be responsible for your own actions. Pack says, base John McAfee quote, the U.S. wants me for tax evasion. Nonsense. Simply refuse to pay. I've been open, honest, and vocal about it for the past 10 years. The whole McAfee thing is a little scary. I mean, when the guy is out there on record saying over and over and over, I'm not suicidal, I won't kill myself, and then he kills himself, It's cause for concern. Absolute cause for concern. Lick says college should be illegal. I will tell you guys, I'm not going to go quite as far as Lick and say it should be illegal, but I tell this to, the kids over whom I have any influence, friends of Braxton's and stuff. Make sure if you want to go to college, that's great. And for what Brax wants to do with his life, he needs to. But make sure you explore all your options, because it's in the future, especially with more and more jobs taking place at home, there's going to be, I believe, really significant good fields in the trades where you can make a lot of money, do really well with benefits. It's something to look into. Arthur says, government should exist only to protect life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in that order and nothing else. Assault can still risk someone's life and liberty. Right, but see, Arthur, now you're getting into semantics. And we might be agreeing, we might not, because unfortunately, things of that nature can never be explained in that simple a terms. You have to know specifically what life is obvious, but liberty and the pursuit of happiness are both very generic terms. You have to be specific about what constitutes liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And that's why we have laws. But no, again, the system in place can work. It just needs to have some common sense. And I think what's happened too is we have so many judges throughout the country now that, unfortunately, and we see it all the time on both sides, that have agendas. That's a lot of why we see so much inconsistency in sentencing. And I think that needs to be addressed. Gabe says, well, yeah, he's got a point. If you're not going to be responsible for your own actions, then you're facing much longer jail time screwing yourself over. Right. I mean, within all that, you always have to factor that in. I mean, there has to be personal responsibility at some level, too. Worrying about the government did this to you or did that to you. But if you know, okay, if you take someone else's life, this is the punishment you pay. And we're talking about wantonly. I know there's always cases of self-defense, things along those lines. I'm willing to stress that too. If a man has been abusing a woman endlessly and she can't take it one day anymore and she shoots him, if that can all be proven, I don't think she should get jail time. So it's not always necessarily just death. But if you are going to wantonly victimize others, you have to have enough self-awareness to understand that you're going to take a responsibility for that. Chrome says, got a question. What do you think Biden was trying to do in this clip? Very confused by his mental state in it, not even dementia. Let me take a look, Chrome, but I think I know the one you're going to link me to. I don't know. That's why I've become very concerned, to be honest with you.
$1.9 trillion.
Oh, the whispering? So yes.
They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential.
I don't even like watching that. That honestly disturbs me as much as anything Trump did disturb me, and there were a lot of things. That is fucking bizarre. $1.9 trillion. What the fuck is he doing? You want to rise up against this country? Well, you better get us some F-15s and some nukes. I've told you guys already, I fully believe that as far as cognitive thought, quality cognitive thought, we've had two morons in a row in the presidency. It's very simple. Physical trauma risks health, life. Arthur, you'll never make that simple. It's never going to be simple as much as you want it to be. You are always going to need very specific laws that dictate what level of punishment is required. Again, that's not very simple. Physical trauma risks health, life. Okay, physical trauma. So what about a case where somebody's riding a bike over a bridge, same person on that same path. One of them's not paying attention. They collide with each other. The biker is thrown off the bike, hits his head, and is in a coma. Somebody go to jail? There's always going to be shades of gray. That's why it all has to be detailed. But that's not even the issue. It's not so much in the details of what constitutes a crime. I mean, we're fairly decent at that. It's keeping even-handed sentencing for like crimes. Joseph said that our government gets a hard-on when they see an unstable teen on their watch list buying guns just so they can let it happen and push for greater control. A lot of what concerns me, too, there is, with a lot of the more recent mass shootings, is all the red flags that we're supposed to be taking notice of were there in a lot of those cases. Certainly with the kid in Florida. That's very concerning. When you know we've got this issue, and you guys know I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but my reticence to attack guns as the reason for all this violent crime has nothing to do with 2A support. It has to do with the fact that the guns aren't doing the shooting, and we're ignoring that because we've got this political issue of gun control. There's something wrong in this country that there are this many people that want to kill large numbers of other people. That's the problem. And are there some levels of government that address that? Sure. But what is the knee-jerk reaction every time there's a shooting? Got to get the guns away. Okay, that's fine. We can have that conversation, but at the same time, we can't get outraged that people are wanting to do this. And that's where we're a little fucked up in all this, I believe. There's never a big outcry for what could we have done? You know, what could have been different in this person's life? Is there anything society could have done to have them not want to go out and kill a bunch of people? It's always, well, what gun do you use? He used an AR-15? Okay, we got to get rid of them. That would have stopped it. No, it probably would not. Philip says if you want to reduce prison populations, you need to start with the kids. You need to focus on kids who are at risk. 85% of prisoners were fatherless. 80% dropped out of high school. Preventative measures. I agree with 100%, Philip. That addresses specifically exactly what I was just talking about. Couldn't agree with you more. These are the things we need to be looking at. Let's see what gets people to these stations in life and see what we can do to change it. It's just like I said about socioeconomically depressed areas where there is a lot of crime, a lot of violence. Let's see what we can do. What are the like factors in all these situations, and how do we change them? The toughest part about that is how do we get the people in those situations to want to change them? That's what we should be looking at, because we know the vast majority of deaths from guns is gang-related, inner cities. Stop worrying about the fucking guns. The kids in gangs are going to get the guns no matter what. Period. It doesn't matter what law you make. They're going to get their guns. Let's start working on trying to figure out how to stop them from wanting to kill each other, to give them something else. Hopefully they're receptive to getting something else in life. Joseph says, is criminal intent even a thing? Well, sure. I think, yeah, sure. It's just what it says. I mean, it's just like in sentencing of any crime. When you go out with an intention to do the bad thing, when that was your thought process, your thought process is, I don't like politician XYZ. I'm going to go kill that fucker today. That's criminal intent. As opposed to getting in a fight in a bar with somebody where temper's flared, somebody gets jacked and their head hits off the bar and they die. Still killed them. Was there a criminal intent there? No, there's probably never any intent other than in the heat of that moment, two guys threw fists at each other. Warrior Race says, if people in England are getting guns, trust me, Americans can get guns even if they're outlawed. Oh, sure, Warrior. Yeah, especially not. I mean, and the funny thing about it is you see them coming after more gun control laws as we're setting records every year for the amount of gun sales in this country. We gotta be way over 400 million guns in this country now, because I know we're approaching it last year and the gun sales have been through the roof. You still can't get ammo in most places. Oh, Spice Kid texted me back. they can talk about gun control and they can say, the public doesn't need this, doesn't need that, but I don't know, the public is buying it up in record numbers for people that they're saying don't want anything to do with it. No noti who dis, no one says. Yeah. Thanks, Susan. Oh, yes, you're right, Joshua. 60% of gun deaths are caused by suicide, not gangs, according to the U.S. government. No, Joshua's 100% right. I did leave that out. Yes, suicides are the number one. And then when you take the suicides out, then the majority of gun deaths are, I shouldn't say gang-related, but crime-related, typically in inner city. Crime, well, anytime you use a gun to kill somebody is crime-related, dumbass. But are handguns in typically gang situations. But you're right. And that's the thing, too. It's terrible when somebody wants to commit suicide, but you will never convince me that you should be able to take the right of owning a firearm away from somebody because somebody else killed themselves with one. Because if people are committed enough to suicide, I mean, come on. Excuse me. Tengu says CRT, critical race theory, for anybody that doesn't know, wants to undo the civil rights movement and segregate the masses, and kids are taught to hate themselves or others in school. More people need to curate the content their kids are exposed to. Listen, I'm a big supporter, as I said at the top, of taking race out of everything that the government does. Listen, you can help disadvantaged communities. You can teach people as best you can to be decent human beings without vilifying anybody, and in most cases without breaking it down by the color of anybody's skin. Just look for programs to help anybody who lives in these socioeconomically distressed regions. Just make sure that in schools you're taught actual history. You don't need to teach motivation. Teach actual history. We went through this period in this country where we enslaved other people. I think we can all agree, and this is coming from a teacher, that that's a vile, horrible thing for any humans to subjugate others. And it's a stain on our society. There doesn't need to be more to it. We don't need for kids to dig into it deeper than that. Everybody's going to make that call for themselves anyway, but you would hope. I know that's the way it was taught to me, and I can remember learning that in school and be like, wow, what a bunch of freaking dicks. You didn't have to be convinced that that was a bad thing, but everybody, again, it still comes down to that, making sure that we keep the sides delineated, keep that line drawn in the sand between us. Repression leads to fixation, mental illness, and crime. It may. I mean, you'd have to be a little more specific in the respect of who is being repressed, by whom, and how. Was there a history of repression in this country? Of course. But if you're saying that the sins of the past are disallowing anyone else to raise themselves up, then I would disagree with you, because we see it happen all the time, every day. Are some people in this country starting at a disadvantaged position to raise themselves up? Yes. That's why I brought that up at the top about doing things from a socioeconomic standpoint, not from a color of one's skin standpoint. Jackson says, we have for decades incentivized single parenthood. You make more money on your tax returns than you pay. It's about the only way to get Section 8. Give more support to having the father there. Jackson, I'm with you. There are so many things. Like I said about it goes back to the same thing I've said about the welfare system. Listen, that should be structured. I think the main focal point of the welfare system should be to ensure that people who are working and trying to get ahead in this country have the support of the others in this country through their tax dollars to be able to do so. Because I fully believe that the vast majority of people are fine, I know I am, are fine with paying taxes for that. If somebody's going out there and busting their ass for 40 hours a week, but they're not making enough to get by, and get by comfortably. If you're working 40 hours a week, you deserve that. Then by all means, that's what the system should be in place for. It's easy. It's numbers. It's easy enough to see. You live in this region, and this is what you make. This is the cost of living. You can't live a decent life. So that's where the system should be taking care of people, not giving them less because they decided to go to work. You know, make sure that they have assistance with buying the food for their family. Make sure they have some assistance in paying their rent. Make sure they can get some assistance in buying a house. And if you're one of these people that is perfectly able to work and you just choose not to, then take the bare minimum. You know, you should not have any guaranteed outcomes in life. You should just be guaranteed opportunity. When I say repression, I mean pointless laws. Well, I would certainly agree with you on that, but again, and will always be the case in things like that, you'd have to define pointless. You know, I'm not just going to say, again, and then who determines what is a pointless law? But if a law is truly pointless, sure, it's a form of repression. Without structure, the proverbial tower will fall. Indeed it will, Josh. 100% right. Arthur says I should be able to go grocery shopping in the nude if I want. I'm with you on that, too. Although I don't want to, man, because if I go grocery shopping, at some point I'm going to be in the frozen foods aisle, and I can't afford shrinkage, bro. No. I'm all for supporting it, but I'm not going to partake. It's bad enough as it is. Chrome says that's the second time he's done this. By the way, Curtis, it's not the same clip as last time. ASMR politics by Biden. Just wait until he walks on the White House lawn naked at night. Chrome, I'm really disturbed by it. And again, don't get me wrong. Even though I didn't vote for him, I've told you guys this way before the election. I'm not backtracking. I don't hate Joe Biden. I've never had much of an issue with Joe Biden. And again, I follow politics forever. I'm just saying there's something wrong. That's bizarre shit, that whispering into the mic, that constantly losing his train of thought and saying things like get yourself some F-15s and nukes, which insinuate that him as president is perfectly happy and willing to nuke Americans if they were to dare even talk about rising up against him. Nukes. Yeah, because a nuke is a highly specialized or weapon with a very specific target that won't just destroy entire communities and states. What the fuck is he talking about? Gabe says, if you're going to be a decent human being, then do me a favor and have a heart towards people and show love to the community instead of being a racist Karen. Who are you talking to? If you're going to be a decent human being, do me a favor and have a heart towards people and show love to the community instead of being a racist Karen. Gabe, you got to be way more specific than that. I think everybody will agree with you on that, but I'm not sure how that even comes up. Pac says, okay, so a porn star gets to have sex in public, but when I do it, they put me on a registry. This is probably what MLK felt when they threw him in prison. I do, and I mean this sincerely, I do appreciate how even our most serious conversations can go to how we relate to porn stars as well as the allowing of nudity in the supermarket. I do like that. Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't, like M says, who's a racist Karen? I haven't seen any, I mean, anything mentioned in here that certainly seemed racist to me today. Jack, I'm a racist, but I'm no Karen. Tengu says, I still can't believe Biden went to Putin like, here's a list of 16 things I'd like you not to target. I don't care how people feel about Trump, but at least he wouldn't do something that daft. Yeah, they're both. They're just, from a cognitive standpoint, both of them were just and are abysmal. It's just, it's sad. It really is. Oh, and hi, by the way, Em. Good to have you in here. Joa? Am I saying that right? Joa, maybe? What about the theory about COVID being genetic engineered to target specific ethnic groups? I don't know about that, Joe. I mean, there's still certainly a lot of, which will probably never be answered, a lot of wonder and concern about exactly where it came from. Did it jump from animals to humans, potentially in one of those wet markets? Or was it something that was being engineered in that lab? I mean, having a genetic lab that close to ground zero is cause for concern, absolutely. Is it 100% indictment? No, of course not. Will we ever know exactly what happened? Probably not, but in any event, the Chinese government is at fault as far as I'm concerned. And again, I'm going to say it every time we talk about this. Not the Chinese people, folks. The Chinese government. Nobody is victimized by the Chinese government more than Chinese people. We're talking specifically about their government. Biden is starting to sound like Marlon Brando on Apocalypse Now. You're neither. You're an enraged. You're an errand boy sent by grocery clerks to collect the bill. It's scary, Philip. It really is. And again, I don't take any pleasure in saying that. I always liked Joe Biden. I don't agree with Joe Biden on a lot of issues, but I always liked him as a dude. And it's frightening what we're seeing. This is what I'm afraid of, Pax. Americans just need to accept that they'll only get presidents that are the quality of a Biden or Trump for the foreseeable future. The political propaganda has been stronger than ever recently. That's 100%. That was the impetus for me starting the stream today. I agree with you. If you look at what's upcoming and the top names in each party and everything, yes, I'm afraid that is the case. I hope it isn't. Arthur says Biden shows us how he whispers to little girls' hair. That was disturbing because it was just so strange, so odd, and it just makes you wonder about his mental state. I don't know, guys. Code says Chinese government, but Chinese government is full of Chinese people. Anyway, never mind. Well, no, those specific Chinese people in the Chinese government. Correct. But as I said, the only reason I point that out, Code, is because we do have idiots here in America who victimize Asian peoples because the Chinese government was responsible for a pandemic. And again, first of all, it's asinine to blame anybody that's just a rank and file Chinese person. Second of all, it's insanely stupid to victimize somebody who lives in fucking America, a Chinese American. How the fuck could they have anything? Why would you feel the need to take retribution on that person who is just as much a victim of the pandemic as are you? It's sad that we have to say, feel like I have to say things like that. Little disclaimers like that because people are simple enough to not understand otherwise. Lick says, hi, everyone. I'm President of the United States, and welcome to my ASMR channel today. ASMR channel. Today I'll be nuking innocent civilians. Josh says, I'm glad I'm not the only one who found it creepy. It stunned me, Josh. The one of them there, I was watching it as it took place, and seriously, I mean, it was just a wide-eyed moment. It's like, what the fuck is he doing? It really bothered me. Tengu says, if the Saiyans were coming and saw that we were up to, they'd probably blow the planet up to make sure our idiocy doesn't spread to other worlds. In the sad but true category, Tengu. Probably would. Wouldn't be able to blame them much either, as the way the world stands right now. My 6th subscriber says, you're Democrat or Republican? Neither. I no way would I ever align with either side, especially now in this hyper-partisan world. But no, I have too many beliefs that tap dance from one side to the other. I don't align with either side's ideals down the line. Warrior says, I feel so bad for Chinese people. Their country has such a beautiful history and culture, only to be ruined by a shit government right now. I agree with you 100%, Warrior. Absolutely agree. ASDASD? ASDASD. Well, I mean, if you think about it, Republicans are Democrats, and to a certain degree, Democrats are Republicans, yeah. You're not wrong. There's probably, if you were to just go down the list of high-profile Republicans and Democrats, yes, and how they will affect the average person, then you're right. They're very similar. Pax says, in your opinion, have you ever had an outstanding president in your lifetime? I know in mine the best president's been mediocre. Pax, I want so bad to say there's been an outstanding one. There are some that have been better than others. And the two that spring to mind both had their faults, but are both ideologically opposed, but I think both of them did a good job, and that would be Bill Clinton and Reagan. Bill Clinton, who was sometimes he strikes you as a goofy hillbilly, but he was a good president, and he is a surprisingly brilliant man. A lot of people don't realize that, but Bill Clinton is like legit genius. And so, I like a lot of what Clinton did. I like a lot of what Reagan did. Had some issues with things that they both did as well. Chrome says, do you think he's going to last the full year before we get President Weinmum? I honestly think she'll be more war hawkish than Biden. It's possible, Chrome. I don't know about him lasting. 6 of one, half dozen of another. You could definitely see a need for him to be gone. But will the Democrats give in to what everybody's been saying all along? Because everything is a political game. And say, okay, well, we're aware that maybe he's not up to snuff and we have to replace him. I don't know. Nicholas says, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And that's something that drove me nuts too, Nicholas. Was the whole thing with Monica Lewinsky. And all the time they spent on that. And that was partisan politics too. I don't give a fuck if she was sucking his dick. I don't care. Listen, I voted, if I vote for that guy, or even if I don't vote for that guy, I want our president doing the best he can on our behalf with policy. Who he's squirting his sticky stuff on makes no difference to me. None. That whole thing was ridiculous. Yes, Clintons do know how to suicide someone good, Arthur. Yeah. Father Anderson says, Biden whisper in girl's ear, Trump grab him by the pussy. I understand that, Brother Malachi. He lied under oath. That's right. I completely understand that. But to be perfectly honest with you, I don't even care about that. It depends. For me, it's very important what the lie was. And did he lie under oath? Sure. But he lied about whether or not he got laid in the office. I just don't care. You can't make me care about that, including at the time. And it's not to stand up for him. I just genuinely don't care. Am I ever surprised that a politician or a human being would lie in that situation? No, of course I'm not. Does it reflect well on him? No. But I think he should have been censored and had it left at that. I don't think there's any reason to try and get him out of office, to impeach him. I know, I like that, Tengu. Epstein is already used as a verb nowadays very commonly. I wonder who will be Epstein next. Will it be Tucker Carlson? Yeah. Yeah, the oral office, Nolan. Yep. Again, and you're right, he did lie under oath, but I just didn't give a shit. Phoenix says, I got here and first thing I hear is grab him by the pussy, so I got here at a great time. Perfect. Exactly, Pax. Bill should have owned that shit. Yeah, I got a blowjob in the Oval Office. Deal with it. Well, you know what, though? I'll tell you. That's true with politicians on both sides and all the time. So many major controversies could have been avoided, I believe, if politicians would have just been willing to accept responsibility right away. Say, yep, I did it. It was stupid. Here's why. Here's my excuse. Hopefully, you guys can accept it and we can be done with it. You would think that would work. Although, even that, well, in the middle of the Me Too movement, now, I always forget his name. The senator that got bounced, who used to be on Saturday Night Live. Oh, God, his name goes out of my head every time. But he got kicked out of office because, remember, he had the pictures where he was goofing around on the plane, where he was pretending, he wasn't actually touching them, but was pretending he was going to grab the female GI's boobs and everything. I don't like the guy. Him and I are as politically diametrically opposed as you can get. But him getting bounced out of office for that, Franken, thank you guys, Al Franken, was bullshit. Because he did do the exact right thing. He came right forward and he said, listen, that was stupid. I made my living as a comedian. I thought it was funny. It wasn't. It was, and the woman who was involved was like, yeah, it was probably kind of sophomoric, but no hard feelings. And he had to give up his position because of that? Are you fucking kidding me? And it was but the surprising thing was it was Democrats that were helping to run him out of office. Excuse me. We can't have that. Not in the midst of the Me Too movement. Listen, he didn't rape anybody. He made a really poor taste, stupid joke. And took ownership of it. That's what impressed me the most. If he would have been like, oh, that picture's doctored, or that was the only time I've ever done anything like that. He didn't. He said, he took full ownership. Yes, I've done goofy things before. That was completely inappropriate, and I'm sorry. That should have been the fucking end of it. Very Tired says, Franken has said since then that he regrets resigning. Oh, I'm sure he does, but I understand why he did. Because we have to remember that in the middle of that Me Too movement, they were looking for blood anywhere they could get it. Anywhere they could get it. And that's what cost him. If he had done it today, as hyper political as everything is today, though, without the Me Too movement being the forefront of everything that's going on, I don't think he would have given up the post. And he shouldn't have. And again, and I don't say that as a supporter. I'm the opposite. I don't agree with him on most of anything. But he should not have lost his position, especially with the class way he handled it. Came right out with an apology. And again, the woman in the picture, she was like, yeah, he's probably shouldn't have done that, but no hard feelings, no harm, no foul. And he's got to lose his job. Arthur says, I love that Clinton and Trump were horn dogs. I hope that the first female president is too. I agree. It's nobody's business and it's totally human. That the whole no sex thing is unrealistic and stupid. Right. And again, like I said, Arthur, trying to impeach him over it, I can see censuring him because it's inappropriate. So if you want to censure him, makes you feel better, have at it. But again, even the lying to Congress, I don't give a fuck. So he lied about getting knobbed. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't care. Nolan says, can't blame these guys for making poor taste jokes like that, considering celebs like Cardi B get glorified as queens when they admit to drugging, robbing, and having sex with unconscious men. Yeah, well, that's you're not wrong. The standards in society are all over the place. Nectar says, Curtis, so what do you think about Olympics trans participation? Not a fan. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with anybody that wants to any trans people. If you're a guy and you feel like you should be a woman, vice versa, you should be able to be happy and live the life you want to live. However, I am not for trans women competing against women who have been female since birth, because the only way you can make that anywhere as close to even, and I don't believe you can make it even at all, but when you start having to take tests to see what your hormone level is, and you have to take the right mix of drugs to get it down to a certain percentage and everything, that's no different than doping to me. We're looking to not do that. And even beyond that, it doesn't matter what your blood levels are. Men have that natural, this isn't my doing, it's nature's natural design of being bigger and stronger in general. Obviously, there are always exceptions, but guys just have the wider shoulders, stronger backs. The structure is entirely different. I mean, we see, look at the NBA and the WNBA. Pretty much every guy in the NBA, well, I shouldn't say every guy can do that, but you got guys in the NBA playing 3 feet above the rim, doing reverse dunks, dunking from the free throw line. And when you see a dunk in the women's game, it's like a really big deal. It's huge, and they can get it over that rim. It's just because of the base difference in the way men and women are structured. So no, I do not support it. Philip says, meanwhile, here in Canada, Trudeau can wear blackface multiple times and still be elected twice. I know, that's amazing to me. There were those molestation charges from his college days. Typical. It's funny, Philip, how some things some guys are Teflon. Look at our governor, Cuomo. I mean, we know he fucked up major. As far as I'm concerned, he's responsible for a lot of senior citizens' deaths in New York. And you've got all those, I mean, not one or two. You've got a bunch of complaints against him for acting sexually inappropriate, and he just goes along his merry way. It's stunning. Emerald says, LL Trudeau is interesting, to say the least. Yeah. And well, Philip isn't as well. I am not a fan of Trudeau at all, particularly with what Philip's been outlining to me today with him wanting to now allow the government to be speech police. Jedi Dan says, trans racing against women. Reminds me of that episode of the Wild Thornberries where the villain Kip won a reindeer sled race. His reindeer was a horse with clip-on antlers. Yeah, the thing of it is, again, you can bring levels in your blood down to certain parameters, but you still have that framework of a male. All right, guys, I got to go. This was a long stream. I knew it would be. We're going to be doing more of these. We're going to be doing these regularly just because I'm so frustrated. I don't know. I've at least talking to you guys gives me an outlet for it because I don't know what we're going to do. We can't get anybody in to the most important political office in this country who is willing to actually take on both sides and say, no, we're doing things the best way for the American people, not your way, not your way. And it really frustrates me. Not for me. I'm going to be 60 this year. Anything that happens politically isn't really going to have much of an effect on my life. But for my kids and grandkids, and for you guys are all younger. And it frustrates the shit out of me. And everybody in Congress, everybody at national level politics needs a good bitch slapping. And they need to be brought back to reality, and they need to start doing the right things, but it's just not going to happen. Arthur says, I stayed the boss. Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry. I got so worked up. I wasn't recognizing stream bosses. Woo, I shouldn't be spending dollars. But yes, the stream's going out now, Arthur. So you remain king until we stream again. Guys, thank you very much for this. And even though it's a political conversation today, we'll throw out a little sticky stuff because it's Tuesday. Tuesdays are blah. But I'm going to, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm going to throw out some sticky stuff. Why? Because I know all of you may not own a blue dress. But everybody should get a blue piece of clothing just in honor of Bill Clinton since we were talking about him. Put a little of the sticky stuff on it and then put that article of clothing away so you have my DNA in the future. Never know when it might come in here. Who knows? I might hit the lottery or something. I become rich. You got that DNA on there? Sue me. Be smart about it. Pumpa, pumpa. Sticky stuff for you. Sticky stuff for you. Sticky stuff for you. Sticky stuff for you. All over the blue clothing. Because we'll bang, okay? Flashy like Buggy. And as always, most importantly, and oh yeah, it doesn't matter what color the clothing is. Goose, 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 goose. Goose.